dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
And you're back on Liberty Nation Radio, heard coast to coast on the Radio American Network. I remain your host, Mark Angelides. We're very fortunate to have with us Mr. National Security himself, Liberty Nation's national security correspondent, the man who understands everything that's happening between the countries, even when they themselves don't, Mr. Dave Patterson. Thanks for being here, Dave.
Thank you, Mark. Always a pleasure to be with you.
So there's not much happening geopolitically recently, is there, Dave? It's pretty much every country for themselves, except down south further than Mexico way, I guess, right? With Venezuela and El Presidente, or should we even call him that now, Nicolas Maduro. So I think the world was stunned when Trump posted out, "We've got Maduro," and his wife, of course. And there's been such a major division on what people think about that, whether it's in terms of morality, legality, constitutionality. But first, I want to kind of delve into your area of expertise here. Now, we did get some details from General Kane, from Marco Rubio, and of course from President Trump on how this was carried out. But it seems to me that the team that actually went in and extracted Nicolas Maduro must have been preparing this for weeks or months in advance, right?
Yeah, well, I think they said that it's been months in the making, and that you had the Delta Force that supported the Department of Justice.
So Chuck Norris, along with
and then for air assets, I believe they had the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment that flew helicopters, and they had drones. In fact, they had from what I understand from the reporting, they had I believe it's an MQ-170, which is a stealth drone.
Yes.
And that was up overhead, landed in Puerto Rico. And so it was pretty much a joint operation. I mean, everybody got a piece of it.
And I guess what surprises most people is in the leaky ship that is Washington, D.C., is nobody knew this was happening. How is that even possible in this day and age? I mean, I guess the jaded answer is it's because he didn't tell Congress.
Exactly.
And is that the answer? Is it?
No, that's precisely correct. And, to be pretty accurate, if you want to have your operation somewhat confidential, nobody tells Congress first. There have been occasions, I think, when George H.W. Bush, but he talked to selective people on the Intel Committee that he could trust, and he didn't tell the Intel Committee.
Sure,
but generally, if it's something that's going to be fairly dramatic and large, you'll tell the Speaker, not the minority leader.
Right.
And
so a gang of four rather than a gang of eight.
Yeah, exactly. You don't, and but in all fairness, I mean, there are trusted agents over there in the Congress that you can share with. I think it's best and a good practice to tell people after it happened.
Well, it's for operational security. I can see that now. Of course, there is some pushback that from congressional members that they weren't briefed in advance, and that actually, I think that kind of brings us on to quite an important point. Is now, Dave, you've worked alongside international agencies, supranational organizations during your career, and so you'd understand this probably better than most. But it seems to me that there is the pushback against Donald Trump here is based on one of two things. Either A, it was a use of force that is against the UN Charter. It's a use of force. So for any use of force against a sovereign nation, he should have had a go-ahead from the UN. But on the I know, because that's going to work out. I understand the ridiculousness of it, but the other one is that he was, and he did stress this initially, and of course Marco Rubio was very much on point about it being this. It was a law enforcement operation, which
right.
had, direct government and military involvement alongside law enforcement. And there's going to be legal challenges. There's going to be votes to try and stop any further action or maybe that, but at time of recording, that may have already happened, which is very much to be unlikely because Donald Trump, unless they get a 2/3 majority, Donald Trump can veto it. But so it's either use of force or it was a law enforcement operation. Now, there's actually good precedents, I think, legally for a law enforcement operation, because a similar thing happened with Manuel Noriega, didn't
That's
it?
right. And there are actually quite a few similarities between the Noriega extraction and getting Maduro. First, you had in Panama, Noriega began to pick up and detain American citizens. Maduro began to pick up and detain American citizens. The drugs, the similarity, very obvious. And but Noriega became a threat to Americans in Panama.
Yeah.
Well, in a way, that was the same thing that was happening in Venezuela, and so there. I think in those two areas, they're just it is similar. And of course, you went in and it was a little bit more dramatic with Noriega. I mean, that took a little bit more time and effort and a larger show of force, actually.
Yeah. But people will also be arguing that Donald Trump illegally did a use of force exercise. And I wonder, do you think that the Trump administration will have trouble defending against those charges?
No, I don't think so. I think that they can make the case that it was a law enforcement action supported by necessary military capability and they, from everything I've learned, they did quite a good job of limiting collateral damage, and so I think they have a good case. I also think that in a very cynical way, they don't care. They got what they wanted.
Yeah.
But there's also this element to it that they told they told Maduro and offered him an off ramp, not once but twice. And I think the last one was just a few weeks ago. But on November 21st, they said, "Hey, look, we want you out of there, and this is what we'll do. No harm, no foul. Just pick your bags up. We'll give you safe passage, but we want you out." And he turned their offer down, and so you get what you get.
Yeah, so you've got I've found this quite amusing, is you've got the same people who were involved in the No Kings protests in 2025. And now they're saying, hey, Donald Trump can't remove this guy. Now, this guy, I think pretty much everybody, maybe there's a couple of more pariah states that say, no, the elections there are legitimate and he's the legitimate ruler. But the vast majority of stable nations say, he's an illegitimate ruler. He cheated in the election or didn't even bother cheating in the election, just held on to power. Because I guess a president is only a president if he is in power according to that nation's rules, laws, and constitution. And that doesn't seem to be the case for Maduro, does it?
Well, I mean, in the fact that he basically broke all the laws and traditions and of his own country. I mean, I think that his most egregious crime was the drugs. I think that and it's going to be kind of an interesting, the day after how this is going to sort out. And because I think that there's so much international criminal and terrorist activity going on in Venezuela that even just taking Maduro out is not going to be the solution, the total solution.
Well, we're going to discuss what happens next after this short break. Don't go anywhere.
We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.